Hey everybody, it's Sino. A few quick notes before the video. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, and consider subscribing for daily uploads of scary stories from Reddit. I'm including a link to my playlist featuring videos sorted by popularity in the video description below. Again, thank you for all the support, and may your wildest nightmares come true. I work in the leasing office at a property in Texas. I also live on site. We have about 400 apartments and take up two sides of a street. I live across the street, in the very back, and try to keep to myself. I do not like for residents to know that I live there. About 2 months in, a woman and her two grown sons lease an apartment with us. The sons are twins. One is special needs, the other is, well, different. He has a very active imagination and is very focused on sex. Almost immediately after they moved in, things started getting weird. One day, I was crossing the street after work to go home. As soon as I reached the other sidewalk, I hear a voice call out, "Hey yo, Raquel!" I turned towards the voice, which I realized was coming from the bus stop at the end of the street. I didn't recognize who it was until I got a little closer. Who the fuck is that? I think to myself. We meet face to face, and I realize who it is from when he moved in. I knew he was a little weird, so I was trying to keep my distance while still being polite. He's easy to piss off, and I do not know what he is capable of, but I do not want to make him think that there is anything behind the polite hello. He starts telling me that I look just like his baby mama who lives in North Texas, then jumps to a different subject about how he had just ran all the way from downtown to here. Then decides to tell me his entire family history, naming all of his cousins and homeboys, rambling on and on about, essentially, nothing. I haven't said anything other than, oh, uh-huh, and okay. I keep taking steps backwards to indicate that I'm trying to leave. But he keeps talking and moving closer to me. As I'm trying to leave, I notice that he has a huge boner. He was wearing basketball shorts, as always, so it is pretty difficult to hide. This creeps me the fuck out, and I somehow managed to get away from him. He sat at the bus stop staring at me as I walked away. I didn't want him to know that I lived there, so I just kept walking down the street to make it look like I lived elsewhere. Every now and then I would see him around the property, or he would come to the office and talk to me, and it was very uncomfortable. The leasing office had a hallway leading to the manager's office, the copier, and the package room. There was a door on it too, which came in handy quite a bit. His visits got to the point where every time I saw him walking up to the office, I would run and hide in the back and let the other staff deal with him. He wasn't creepy towards them, and they knew the situation, so it was cool. Cut to December. Our office was being remodeled, so we were using our business center as a temporary workspace. It is only one room. There is only one way in or out, and no place to hide. I was alone in the office one day, and who should come walking in but my worst nightmare. He needed to borrow our copy of his mail key because he misplaced his. We have to take an ID in order to release keys, and he didn't have his, so he had to go to his apartment, get the ID, and come back. In the time that he was gone, I set up my phone on my coworker's desk and started recording video in case any crazy shit happened, so I would have the evidence. He noticed a tattoo on my shoulder and commented on it, asking, "Is that your name, or?" Why in the hell would I have my own name tattooed on myself? I tell him that it's my grandmother's name, which sends him into this whole spiel about how he has his grandmother tattooed on him, and he is an artist and he draws people's faces. He leaves to go check his mail, then returns a few minutes later. However, when he returns, he has added something to his ensemble. He now has a pencil behind his ear, I suppose to make him look like more of an artist. Then, he said he was going to draw my face, but I have to send him a picture so he can look at the image of me. He said he would draw me and bring the picture to the office later that week. I did not send him a picture. Months go by, no picture. I was walking through the pool area to go walk an apartment, and he catches me. Fuck. No escape. He presents me with, well, I really don't know what to call it. It's me. Or I guess how he sees me. The picture was drawn on lined notebook paper, in pen, and looked like he threw it together in 3 minutes. I am white, but he drew me black, wearing a short, tight dress, not something I would wear, legs 2 different sizes, carrying a purse with a Texas flag on it. That's not an item I own. It was very creepy. I keep it on my fridge to remind myself that I am not safe. Upon closer inspection of said drawing, I noticed that he drew nipples on it under the dress. I thought, oh my god, did he originally draw it naked? The next day I talked to the maintenance man about it. He says that he did originally draw it naked, but he decided to put clothes on it because giving it to me like that would be too forward. What the actual fuck? Another day, I was walking out of one of the pool gates and he is walking through another. I saw him out of my peripherals but didn't acknowledge him because, well, you get it. He says, "Hey yo, Raquel," twice, in a very low voice. I am hard of hearing, so I can get away with pretending I didn't hear someone. Apparently, this made him angry. The reason I know this is because he talks to one of our maintenance staff about me regularly. That person relays the weird, creepy delusional shit that he says about me. According to him, I was very rude, and he don't play that where he's from. The next few times I saw him, he had this deranged look in his eyes, like he was disgusted by me. It also kind of looked like he wanted to hurt me. A few weeks go by, and he apparently gets over being mad and resumes being the creepiest motherfucker alive. The maintenance man tells me that he claimed to have met my boyfriend, and that he's a cool dude, so he's gonna back off. I asked my boyfriend if he had ever met him, and he says no. The maintenance man tells me that he claims to have met my parents when they stopped in for a visit, and they were really nice, cool people. I asked my parents if they spoke to or saw anyone while visiting at work. They also say no. I don't know when or how he could have met them or even saw them. I never saw him around when they were there. I have confirmed from multiple different people that were there that he was nowhere around. Is he hiding in the fucking bushes? Recently, I decided to use our fitness center late at night. The fitness center has big windows that overlook the second pool on my side of the property. While I'm on the treadmill, which is in front of one of these windows, he appears, staring at me through the glass, waving at me, watching me. I pretend there is a glare on the window and that I didn't see him. He disappears into the dark shadows in the pool area, and I continue my workout. The next day, the maintenance man tells me that he talked to our friend, and he could not stop talking about how he saw me in the fitness center. He went into detail about what I was wearing, how form-fitting it was, how sweaty I was. Overall, creepy shit that gave me the chills. I avoid the fitness center and use my real gym to avoid seeing him again. A few days go by, and my informant, the maintenance man, you get it, tells me that my stalker was wondering why I stopped going to the gym. Apparently, ever since that fateful night, he had been returning to the pool around the same time to wait for me, so that he could watch me work out again. Fucking nope. He starts to show up at the office frequently, and I have to avoid him. Friday, he is sitting in the pool area by the office, directly behind where my desk is. There is a huge window behind me. I turn to get something out of my cabinet, and catch him staring at me. He waved. I flash a nervous peace sign, and then proceed with my business. He is not in swimwear, but rather fully dressed. He had his notebook with him, and is frantically drawing something. I think, great. Here comes another picture of me, but this time in workout clothes. Nope. My coworker went to put up the golf cart and close the cabana. She has to go through the pool area to do this, so she got a glimpse of what he was drawing. A cross, with my name going down the middle. According to him, I asked him to draw a tattoo for me. So that's what he was doing, drawing a tattoo. For me, that has my own name on it. It's bad enough that it's a cross, but with my name, that would burn my flesh. He says he's going to give it to me the next day. The next day he didn't show up. I'm not sure when I asked him to draw me a tattoo, but I'm pretty sure it was fucking never. 2 weeks pass, and I think that maybe he isn't going to give me the drawing, and enough time has passed that he gave up and I could use the fitness center again. My friend and I went around 8 p.m. and we didn't see any signs of him, so we go ahead with our workout. I was flipping over to do leg raises on my right side, which causes me to face the door. Chills engulf my entire existence, and my heart stops for a second. He is standing directly across the street, on the phone, staring at me through the door. I start to panic and find a place to hide from view. Peeking around the corner, I see him turn and walk through the outside hallway behind the leasing office, his normal route to his apartment. Hoping that he wouldn't come back for a while, we continue our workout. I keep glancing out the window every few seconds to make sure he isn't there. He reappears, still talking on the phone, but this time he starts pacing around the fitness center very slowly, looking through the windows with this creepy-ass side glance, like I wouldn't be able to see him creeping. I keep trying to hide from view, and I'm watching for an opportunity to get the fuck out of there. I'm hiding in a corner, and he walks up to the locked door and fucking knocks on it. He continues to knock for a solid 3 minutes, then finally leaves. He walks down the street a little way, and I take the chance to run the fuck back to my apartment as fast as I can. Today, my informant tells me that Stalker said I wouldn't let him into the fitness center for a drink of water. He said that he had just run all the way from a popular nearby place, and he just wanted water, but I wouldn't let him in. Then, he switched up his story and said that he was trying to give me the drawing of the tattoo that I had asked him for. 1. He didn't run from anywhere. He was wearing flip-flops. 2. He had been standing still for a good 30 minutes before coming to the fitness center. He had gone back to his fucking apartment, where there is water. So why the fuck would he go all the way to the fitness center for water? 3. He didn't have the drawing with him. He didn't have pockets on what he was wearing, and it wasn't in his hands. He also claims to have talked to my neighbor that lives across the street from me, and he said that I am a weird, crazy girl, and he should stay away from me. That shook me to my core because if that is true, then he knows where the fuck I live. I knocked on my neighbor's door and asked him about it. He says he has no idea what I am talking about. Luckily, this Friday is my last day at this property, as I am transferring to a new one closer to where I want to live. I will still live here for 2 more months. I can't wait to leave. This happened 9 months ago on the 3rd night at our new apartment. My husband, small kids, and I had just moved here to the US from abroad. We were awaiting a huge shipment of all of our belongings, so our new 2-bedroom was totally empty, except for our new mattresses on the floor of the master bedroom, where we all slept while awaiting our stuff. Just for a little context, our apartment was part of a newly built, high-end complex of 3-story condo buildings in a great location. Our 2nd floor, 2-bedroom unit faced the back. Nothing but train tracks, trees, the beautiful sound of crickets, and a building site just beyond that. It might not sound it, but the view was really neat. The freight trains could be very noisy at times, but I actually enjoyed it a lot at first. On this particular night, my husband was snoring horribly. Like the previous night, I couldn't sleep at all because of it. So this time, I gathered up some of our bedding, went into the empty second bedroom, and crashed on my little boy's pool mattress. The trains were noisy, but compared to my husband's snoring, it was relaxing and I fell asleep fast. I woke up though, at about 2 a.m. to extremely loud train noises, hissing, grinding, and squeaking, but that wasn't what woke me. It was the heavy vibrations that I felt. I chalked it up to the idling train outside the bedroom window though, and got up to use the bathroom. On my way back to bed, I crossed the empty living area to check on the kids and paused in front of the huge window and balcony door for a minute or two. I briefly contemplated going out to the balcony since it was such a hot night and my sleep was so shitty anyway, but I went back to bed instead. About an hour or so later, I was awoken to more loud noises. These felt like they were directly above me. Lots of heavy thumping and thudding that went on for more than an hour. My head was foggy and heavy from a shitty sleep. I wasn't coherent, so I didn't bother trying to reason out the cause for so much noise after hearing the train all night, so I fell back to sleep for a few more hours. My husband woke me in the morning, asking me if I had seen the huge ladder on our balcony. We went out to look, and there it was, a huge metal ladder leaning against the side of our building. Someone had pulled it up onto our balcony so they could then climb up to the one above us. There were also 2 empty beer bottles sitting on our stroller and a few cigarette butts extinguished on our windowsill. Obviously, they'd been taking their little breaks on our balcony. We could see between the balcony floorboards to the door above us, and sure enough, it was completely smashed. The wood frame of the door was in splinters and practically ripped out. We called the police immediately and they came right away. Apparently, the sole female occupant was away in Florida at the time of the break-in, thankfully. The police didn't give us a lot of information, but told us that although the entire apartment had been destroyed and ransacked, nothing appeared to be taken. I spoke to the building manager later that day, who told us that every single cushion and bit of bedding had been ripped open, that every single drawer and piece of furniture had been pried open, but that all of her expensive electronics were unscathed, as was a huge glass vase full of money. She returned to her apartment after a week or so, but we never did see her in person. We later heard through another employee of the complex that this tenant had a dangerous ex-husband who couldn't let go, and that it was him who destroyed her place when he realized she wasn't home. What would he have done had she been home? It could have gone so many different ways. What would the intruder have done if I went out onto the balcony? My precious little munchkins and husband could have been hurt too. We just didn't feel safe after that. The trains were just so creepy to hear after that. We all slept in the same room from that point on, until we switched to a different building a few months later. This happened during the summer about a year ago. I work at a local family-owned grocery store that has its own package store. With a package store comes a bottle return room, and ours is particularly small, with only 2 machines that, may I add, jam and break fairly easily. We're located next to a gas station / convenience store, so we get our fair share of strange, creepy men who love to make young women feel uncomfortable and purposely break our bottle machines so the girls have to fix them as they watch. We also get a handful of regulars since we're a local shop, and unfortunately, many of our regulars are those creepy, perverted men. Our bottle room is where this story starts. It was a Saturday night, around 8 o'clock. We closed at 10 on Saturdays, so although it was summer, it was dark outside once we left work. One of our regulars, I'll call him Jim, came in to return some bottles. Jim is a slightly older, short man, probably in his 50s, who smelled of sweat and beer and loved to sing while returning his bottles. He didn't seem to be as creepy as most of the other men that come in, but I was always cautious around him. Naturally, my coworker, I'll call him Nick, and I got a call at the registers, letting us know that the bottle machines were jammed. Nick volunteered to go unjam the machines since he knew who was behind the call. Nick comes back to the front after a few minutes and everything is completely normal. He helps a few customers out and waits to see if Jim will come to the front before telling me he is going to fill the milk and eggshells in the cooler. Protocol for closing the store. It doesn't take too long to restock the milk and eggs, maybe 10 minutes on a night where the shelves are very empty. But Nick came back within 2 minutes. After he rang up another customer, he told me, "Jim was asking to see you, personally, so just a heads up." Despite the gross feeling that gave me, it wasn't out of the ordinary for Jim to say that. Nick cleared his throat and then said quickly, and he had a machete, so there's that too. Now, weird shit going down in the bottle room isn't unusual, but I can say I have never seen, or even heard, of a customer carrying a machete in any store. I suggested we call the police, but Nick told me he wasn't threatening anyone with it. He was putting it back in his backpack, so the cops probably wouldn't do much. I shrug it off for the most part, as I trusted Nick, but still, I keep it in the back of my head to watch out for Jim. 10 or 15 minutes go by, and there was no sign of Jim anywhere, so I figured it was safe for me to assume he had left and would redeem his bottle slip another time. The next hour and a half goes by smoothly, and we are getting ready to close our registers and lock our doors when I see someone run by the floor-to-ceiling windows at the front of the building, which is behind our registers, so while I am working on the register, my back is to the windows. I shrug it off again, but I am still wary, and decided to keep myself on high alert and return to my closing business. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the same person run by the sliding doors to my left, tripping the motion sensor, causing the door to open. I recognize the person as Jim. At this point, I am getting slightly nervous and tell Nick it was close enough to 10 p.m. for him to lock up. He goes and locks the doors, and I see Jim run by again, totally ignoring Nick. We finish closing, and Nick shuts all the lights off, but I tell him not to leave yet, because I was feeling even more nervous about Jim running around outside. Jim wasn't just leisurely going for a run around our store. He was pacing, almost like he was circling our store, waiting for us to come out. I let Nick know that I was very unnerved by this, especially since I hadn't driven to work that night, and my mother wasn't there to pick me up. He said it would be okay from the inside of the store, and we just needed to wait it out. We were waiting in the aisles of the store, watching Jim closely, when I noticed a gleam of light reflecting off of something in his hand. It was his machete. I texted my mom to tell her to park right in front of the back door so I could jump straight into her car when she got there. When Nick and I deemed it safe enough to leave, we took the opportunity and booked it out of there. I saw Jim at the front of the store as my mom and I drove off, and I can definitely say that event sticks out to me as the most unsafe I felt at work. I can't tell you why we didn't call the police. I guess I trusted Nick enough to also trust his word against calling them, but looking back, I think it was dumb of us not to call them. Some things to add. I was a 17-year-old girl at the time of this event, and knowing that Jim was asking for me personally, that situation had the potential to get a whole lot worse, especially since we decided not to call the police. I also don't know the laws for carrying weapons in the town I live in, or at my place of work, so I'm not sure if it was illegal to have it on the property of the store, let alone carry it. I'm a 22-year-old male, and at the time that this took place, I was about 16 years old. It was summertime and school was out. I am an avid pot smoker and I have been for as long as I can remember. It was about 8 p.m. on a hot summer night. I was walking to my apartment unit from another unit in the complex when a black Ford F-150 pulled up next to me and I heard a woman say something. I looked and she waved me over to the truck. As I was walking over, she asked me if I knew where to get some pot. I hesitantly responded, "Are you a fucking cop?" She then shows me an open beer in the cup holder of the truck, implying there's no way she can be a cop if she's drinking and driving. So I asked, "What's in it for me?" She responded, "A bag of weed. Now get in here." Thinking to myself that this can't be a good idea, against my better judgment, I hop in the truck and call up my dealer for some pot. Thinking to myself that this can't be a good idea, and against my better judgment, I hop in the truck and call up my dealer for some pot. He answers after the first ring. I let him know what's going on, and we start heading his way. But before heading his way, she thought it would be a good idea to buy a minor some alcohol and proceeded to make me drink a beer as she drank another one herself. On the way to the spot where we were meeting my dealer, she asked if I could call him so she could speak to him. I agreed. Somehow, they made a deal to where he was also going to bring her crack. That's when I knew I fucked up. We get to the spot. My dealer hops in the backseat of the truck. They exchange drugs and money. Apparently, my dealer and the crackhead made a deal to where he was going to have a hit of the crack too, but as soon as the crackhead hit the crack, she turned into a different person. She reminded me of someone who was possessed. She told my dealer, "The only way you're hitting this is if you eat my pussy." She then whipped her leg over the middle seat and pulled her leg on my lap, with her vagina fully visible. She was wearing a skirt. He declined, and he proceeded to fight and argue over the crack pipe. I jumped out of the truck, out of fear, and ran across the street to a gas station. Instead of calling my mom for help, I ran back to the crackhead's alleged truck and asked her to drop me off at home. I would have walked home, but it was getting late, and I was quite the distance from home. I'm not sure where she and my dealer left off, because by the time I got back into the truck, he was gone and she was completely out of it. I lived on a main street back then, and we had only driven 5 to 10 miles down that street to pick up the drugs. When she started driving, she went the opposite direction of my apartment. She wasn't taking my directions very lightly. She screamed at me, saying she knew where she was going. I didn't know what to do. I thought about jumping out of the truck while she was driving. She didn't stop at stop signs or red lights. I'm surprised she didn't get pulled over. She then starts freaking out about the fact that I'm 16 and I had gotten her drugs. She told me to call my mother because she wanted to bitch her out for not knowing where I was or what I was doing. I was so confused and scared. I told her my mom would beat her ass if she knew this was going on, so I called my brother. As soon as he answers the phone, she starts screaming into the phone. You almost couldn't understand what she was saying. Eventually, she took me home, but forced me to smoke a blunt with her, as if I hadn't already gone through enough shit that night. I rolled a blunt, and we smoked it while walking around my apartment complex. While smoking, she saw 2 young men and chased after them. I took that chance to run home and never looked back. It was the August of 2005, and my family, of which there were only 4 members at the time, had taken a week-long vacation to Tobago, as many Trinidadians do. I was a young child back then and was asleep at the time of the incident. The weekend we returned home was the weekend our church held a sports and family day, and we attended the event, enjoying the food and fun. When we returned home, we had several bottles of barbecue sauce, as my mom was 29 and 8 months pregnant at the time, and the church lady spoiled her. The event was also a potluck of sorts, and there was a lot of excess food. Since my mom was craving barbecue sauce, she decided to bake some chicken for Sunday lunch. After preparing the meat, she put the chicken in the oven and went to her bedroom to get changed and iron clothes for church the next morning. When she returned to the kitchen, she realized that the back door was open. The house was very old, and the back door was one of those stable doors that could open at the bottom and top separately. It also had a burglar-proof gate, which was meant to be an extra layer of security. When my parents had bought the house, the door was already broken, and they always meant to change it but never got around to doing so. She returned to her room after noticing the open door and asked my dad if he had gone outside to do laundry. He said no, and she found it very strange. She pulled the door in and went about her business. When she returned to the kitchen a second time, she noticed the door was slightly ajar again. The door had one of those old handles that you had to pull down and push to open. When she pulled in the door, she saw before her very own eyes, the handle turning again, seemingly on its own. Realizing someone must be on the other side of the door, she ran to the bedroom and told my dad, "I think someone is in the yard." So he got up and followed her to the kitchen. He looked through the window beside the door and saw something large and brown scurry across the yard. "Looks like it's just a dog," my dad said. Stray dogs were very common in the area. My mom found it quite odd that a dog would be turning the handle, so my dad decided he was going to go outside and tend to the matter. "That's not wise," my mom told him, and they both went to the guest bedroom, which had a window that faced the backyard. Again, they saw something dart across quickly through the shadows. My father was insistent on tending to the matter, but my mother was still quite against it. As they were discussing it in the kitchen, they realized the person was listening on the other side of the door. What they didn't realize until the next day was that the person had put their hand through the kitchen window and stolen the serrated kitchen knife. They planned on using the knife to unlatch the top of the back door by sticking their hand through the window beside the back door. They had succeeded, and the door had been opened. All they needed to do was cut the padlock that locked the burglar-proof gate, and they would have been inside the house. In my opinion, the scariest part was the fact that they had called the police station, which was about 3 minutes from our house, and they took 3 hours to get here. They didn't even get the correct address. One of our neighbors had to direct them to our house. When they finally came, they were armed with excuses. They didn't want to do their job. They said the roofs were too dirty to get fingerprints. They didn't want to go in the river tonight. Some background here. There's a river behind our house, and we have a wall to protect us from the people across the river. People on the other side of the river often hop over the walls of our neighbors' houses and burglarize them. Thankfully, we've never been burglarized, and since then, we've built a building in our backyard, so now they can't hop over. And finally, they didn't want to deal with any dogs. Thing is, the dogs were still barking when the police arrived, meaning the burglar was still on the other side of the wall. I work as a theater nurse, and I lived in an affluent neighborhood in a city in Scotland. The flat I lived in was a tenement on the first floor, so I was pretty high up. I felt pretty safe in it. About 6 years ago, I had to shift from hell. Theater overran, the patient was very ill, just one of those days. I arrived home about 8 p.m. My shift finishes at 6, usually. I was a smoker back then, so I made some dinner, and I didn't clean up as I was so tired. I had a cigarette and decided to watch a film on my laptop in bed. I decided to watch The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and turned the lights off, hoping I'd just fall asleep or relax. Halfway through the film, I thought I heard a noise in the kitchen, so I turned the volume down and I couldn't hear anything. I turned the volume back up and continued watching the film. I did feel uneasy, but thought there's no way someone can climb up the drain pipe into the flat, so it's the wind. Anyone that's watched the film with Vince Vaughn in it knows he's pretty loud and shouty. I get out of bed for a smoke, and notice that the kitchen window is up higher than I could push it, and my handbags that I'd left draped over one of the chairs are missing. I turned around, and one of my large kitchen knives was sitting at the edge of the counter. Well, I absolutely crapped myself, and ran out the front door and just stood in the corridor. I knew whoever had been in the flat wasn't in the kitchen, bedroom, or bathroom, as I could see when I opened the front door into the bathroom. I calmed down and checked out the living room, and it was clear. I'm not scared at this point. I know whoever was in the flat is gone. I head back into the bedroom, and on my laptop, I Google my banks and call them all to cancel my cards. I then called the local police station and told them what happened. She wasn't happy that I didn't call 999, and within 5 minutes, I had 4 police cars and police dogs looking for this guy. One police officer was going through the flat with me, and we looked at the window, and I could see a spot of blood. I said to him, "That's not my blood. Whoever was in here, that's his." He argued with me, saying it wasn't. I said, "I've spent the last 12 hours looking at blood, and that's definitely it." The officer takes my statement and gets a call that the guy has broken into another flat whilst the police are everywhere. This guy's got some balls. Forensics came out the next day and said there had been so many break-ins that the sample would go under a certain operation they were carrying out. I received a citation for court a few weeks later. I had no idea why. I didn't see him, I only knew it wasn't my blood. I got a call not to go the night before, so thankfully, I didn't have to go to court. I don't know how long he got in prison, but I couldn't stay in the flat after that. And if I hadn't been watching a film that could have been interpreted as having a guy in the flat, since that asshole had picked up one of my knives, what would he have done? It's something I've thought about for a long time. Vince Vaughn, you possibly saved my life, but like a fly that won't stop buzzing around your face, the thought just wouldn't leave my mind. The sound of the screaming, the odd old music, and the heaving, grunting man who seemed all too happy for visitors. What the hell did I send those people into?